All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Back on the West Coast, and no sooner do I tell Albert that he doesn't have anything to worry about today. I need my, yes, thank you, that's what I need, thank you. I need my funky music, baby, come on. Slides me into the new week, kid, you know, yeah. Good morning from the 510DD. Square is in. And Tom, who is the unofficial Ding arbiter, has joined in the chat. These are all references to the chat, everybody. You can join on YouTube. We are live now on the YouTube platform. And then, of course, we go out as a podcast after the fact. If you just want the audio version, you may be just listening to that. We got some great stuff on the show today. It is just Albert and myself today, everyone. I know it's a big challenge because Kim is celebrating her son's birthday today. I've never been bumped by a 9-year-old, but it just happened. Yeah, so Kim is gone today and tomorrow. So Courtney joins us with Mark's Murder Mystery Monday, bottom of the hour. And we'll get into everything today. They have shot down yet another object. And it's really what we do in this country. We shoot things. So if you are coming in by air, we either shoot each other or we shoot down objects. But as long as we're shooting, we're very happy in America. The latest objects that have been shot down, it's unclear as to exactly what they are or from what country or entity they might have come. We'll get into that a little bit later. I do have some thoughts, and I'd love your thoughts. So all of that's to come. The bomb train, the explosion that is affecting Palestine, Ohio. I have some thoughts on that and also some new information that's just breaking this morning on that in terms of toxic chemicals that, you could call them deadly chemicals that are being released across that region and now potentially leaching into water supplies that go into Cincinnati, Ohio. Again, I'll get into that a little bit later as well. I even have a chunk of Trump if I have time. But, of course, Mark's Murder Mystery Monday, bottom of the hour. While you're here and while we're starting, smash that like button like a boss. Just get us started. And I want a quick shout-out to Steve Moskowitz, who is our
iron rod
sponsor here, and he's been giving Bay Area tax advice and also great counsel and even setting up businesses around the Bay Area and California and across America. He's been doing all of that for over 30 years. So he can help you out as well at 888 Tax Deal. You can also reach Steve online, MoskowitzLLP.com. So much going on. Let's get started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl yesterday. It was pretty good. We are fortunate that we have the Commissioner of Sports with us on this show. I mean, I'm amazed that he's here, but he is. The Commissioner of Sports is the great Albert, everyone. Albert, I know. Albert, wow, that's Albert, it's time for you.
The Super Bowl was a really good game up until the end. You hate to see it end like that, but overall, no Niners. I don't really care that much. So it was a good game. It was bad commercials. It was. I think Mark.
You didn't like the commercials.
What did you think of the commercials this year?
I thought they were. All right, let me give you the airliner view of the commercials. They're feeling really like they're trying too hard. There's so many celebrity-filled commercials that it's very hard to break through. They become, in a sense, their own noise, you know? It's kind of like what we talk about in media, that you have to make a lot of noise. That's why the screamers on YouTube, you know, the F-bomb, flame-throwing political mouths, they get the most clicks. They have the most followers. There's a little of that in Super Bowl commercials. Everybody's casting more and more celebrities every year, and they're getting more and more creative. So the good news is you see a lot of recognizable people that you wouldn't think would be doing commercials. There used to be a stink about doing commercials, you know, selling out to the man who, and then the Stones licensed their music to be used in a commercial. And all of a sudden you found that was, in a way, the new kind of radio airplay for a lot of musicians. But Bob Dylan sort of looked down his nose at ever licensing, and then Dylan music was used, actually. So at some point, being in a commercial got cool, and now you end up with, or fun, and now you end up with a lot of celebrities. So my view of the commercials is that it's a lot of noise, but some still push through. So I like the Travolta commercial, for example. I thought that was funny. I think I like Travolta. I told you, you know what I mean? And I got on the chat, well, he's a Scientologist. I don't care if he's a Scientologist. I don't care if he's a born again. I don't care. I think he's a very talented actor and, for all I can tell, a pretty good guy. Sweet guy, you know? Anyway, I like that spot where we told you about it here on the show on Friday, that Summer Nights thing was going to be reprised. I like that. After that, they kind of fall off. The very best spot was the Breaking Bad spot.
Yeah, I agree. For that chip that I can't even name. I can't even name the chip.
No, I never heard of that chip before. The pop chip or something?
Yeah, something about popcorner or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, what is that chip? Yeah, what?
Google it.
Yeah, Google the chip. It's somewhere in there.
I also enjoyed. Speaking of chips, I did enjoy the Doritos commercial with Jack Harlow, the triangle. And then
I don't think I saw that.
How
does that work?
He's a rapper and he wanted a transition. He felt more inspired by doing something different. Obviously, Doritos come in triangles, so he actually had the musical triangle, and he was training people, and he got really famous for. It was a very short commercial. It was really good.
That's great. I wish I could remember. I couldn't see every single one. I tried to.
We'd love to watch it with the chat here, but I'm pretty sure it will be copyrighted.
We can't. If we watch it, we'll get copyright strikes. We can't show you anything, but we can kind of reminisce with you.
Yeah, Janet has it. Popcorner chips.
Popcorner chips. Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, the commercials, I thought, they did what they're supposed to do. They got a lot of buzz, the Mr. Peanut getting roasted thing, and the spots that, and then I'm going to move on to the game, and then we're going to do Rihanna, and then but the spots that I thought missed but were oddly entertaining were the Ben Stiller, Steve Martin spots. I thought they were funny, but again, just a little too much. Like they needed to pull back in terms of really sticking the landing. They needed to pull back 15%.
I think those were the Pepsi commercials, right?
Right. Pepsi Zero, I think they call it. Yeah.
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 Is it just acting or is it actually good? Well,
yeah,
you have to find out.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a cool concept, and you're trying to integrate these very high-profile personalities into your spots. But I felt as though it just tried a little too hard. And when Stiller and Steve Martin are next to each other and they're both kind of making fun of each other, that was the best part of the spot. And then somehow it got hit. So that's my take on that. I'm two very likable personalities. There are a lot of likable. Snoop was in one of them. I think there was there's sort of a lot of likable celebrities who are in these spots. And then and before we get to the game, the halftime show was spectacular. I mean, absolutely spectacular. Rihanna
it was essentially a pregnancy announcement.
It was a gender
everyone
reveal.
Was invited to Rihanna's pregnancy party. Everybody.
Well, I have some. First of all, here's something. There's kind of a rumor And so I'll just speak to it. And that is that performers don't get paid anything for doing the halftime show. We've even talked about this on the show over the last couple of years. And there's truth to that. Rihanna and Bruno Mars and, fill in the blank, they don't get paid for their performance. Now, the production elements that go into that performance, that is typically picked up by the
would that be Apple Music? I think Apple Music sponsored the
they
halftime
sponsor
show.
it. I hate to say who this is that right? Okay, so that's it.
Yeah, but it was usually I was used to it was like always the Pepsi halftime show for 20 something years, 15, 20 years. So this is a new thing. And I know they did a little cross promotion through Rihanna. Like we saw it in the commercials after. Even on YouTube. Oh my gosh, YouTube is just flooded with all Super Bowl ads.
They get nothing. Where is that? You get nothing for the actual.
You get nothing
for the actual performance, but the production elements are typically paid by the sponsors. Okay, so that's a huge cost. You're looking at halftime shows that are typically in the $13 million range. When Jennifer Lopez and Shakira performed, it was $13 million. That's the production cost. The performers sometimes even pick up some of their own production costs. It's rumored that The Weeknd dropped $7 million of his own money. And I say it's rumored because
that's real.
He said that that's what he spent of his own money to make that halftime show happen for him.
He had multiple sets though, and he was running through like a room. There was it went viral on Twitter. This is just the big part of the Super Bowl. You watch the moments in the Super Bowl to see the virality of the moment. And The Weeknd had like him running in this glass room or mirrored room. That was his moment. But Rihanna had, I don't know how she did it. She was pregnant up hundreds, I don't want to say thousands, but hundreds of feet up in the air, pregnant, dancing. And it was a really good show. Sometimes you forget how many songs she has because she hasn't really come back out. So
that's
and everybody
exactly
on Twitter
right.
was complaining, oh, she's pregnant, so we have to wait longer for more music.
Well, she says she's actually got an album waiting, but she's not committing to a timetable on it. But apparently because of her, I thought it was spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. And a lot's being made of the first pregnant performer. I don't know, pregnant, not. I'm just saying it was spectacular. And apparently, a lot of MAGA loyalists have criticized Sunday's Super Bowl. How can we politicize? How can you politicize that? By the way, she's wearing red. How can you not be happy with that, MAGA loyalists? They say that, I guess they were not happy with the Lift Every Voice and Sing performance that was done by Sheryl Lee Ralph prior to the national anthem being sung. That was the national anthem was sung by Chris Stapleton, and Sheryl Lee Ralph did a performance prior to that. I didn't see that. In the interest of full disclosure, I have to tell you. But was it? I don't know. Some people didn't stand or whatever. I don't know. That's supposed to be what, Albert? Are you familiar with that?
I do know. I was half watching. I'm like.
It's like a black national anthem, they say, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Just in general, just the preamble to the game, it just takes way too long. Like it's regardless of singing the national anthem or not. It's just we're ready for kickoff, but it's already 3:45. I expected a 3:00 start, and it's just taking forever. But
I expected 3:30, and I thought it took forever. I agree. So I kind of ignored all of that, so sorry. Like I even ignored the anthem. I saw it being sung, but I just,
all I saw was the Eagles coach crying on Twitter, like during the national anthem, because that was the clip that was circulating, and then the game happened, and it was a pretty good game, Mark. Like from start to finish, it kind of felt like a college football game.
It was
blow for blow, high scoring.
Yeah,
you're waiting for that one mistake from the team.
It was a really, really tense game. By the way, on the anthem thing that neither Albert nor myself saw, but is now being sort of skewered by MAGA loyalists and maybe others. I see both sides of that. The one side is, hey, we've got an anthem. Okay, we've got one anthem, and can we just get that anthem done and then get the ball game underway? The other is there's a segment of society that feels a bit disenfranchised, maybe a bit understates it, and Black America has a song that I guess is, and again, as a privileged white guy, I have to admit I didn't see it, and I also am not familiar with it. I know Shirley Ralph she's beyond talented, but so why not just let her perform and let that be the warm up to the national anthem? I don't like the national anthem. I don't like anything about our national anthem. It's wrong. It celebrates war. It's bombs bursting in air. It's your rockets red glare. Screw that, man. Make our national anthem America the Beautiful. You still have God in there if you want it as a lyric. And it celebrates the beauty of America, which is the spectacular thing about this country. And you can have Republicans in power and Democrats in power. It doesn't change the beauty of America. I mean, until we strip mine every last national park. So when you get to this national anthem thing, I don't know. Sing whatever you want. If I were there, I'd stand. What's the big deal? Whatever. But I agree. There's one anthem, and it's crappy. Okay? I just said it. And I love this country, and I love it enough to say we ought to have a better anthem. Now, the game, yeah, it was tense and great, and as the commissioner says, it was spectacular all the way to the end. All the way to the end. It
wasn't one of those like field goal here, grind it out type of games. It was a highlight from each team. You saw how evenly matched they were. And I thought the Eagles are so talented on both sides of the field that they're just relying on their individuals, and I think that was a difference because the Chiefs also rely on their individual play, but they also have a great scheme, and they do these crazy, bizarre plays, and whatever they did to special MVP is also Rihanna for how long the halftime show was, because I don't know what they did with Pat Mahomes at halftime. They had Mr. Miyagi in the locker room.
It was amazing.
And shooting up all the Toradol.
Look at this
Mahomes'
Kansas
ankle.
You know what? It reminded me of a bit, Niners fans. They're down by 10, the Chiefs, right? And I'm thinking, well, they were down by 10 to the Niners.
That's their sweet spot, Mark. That's when they finally activate. It's the third quarter. It's for your Warriors fans. It's the third quarter for the Warriors.
Right. There you go. They're down by 10. Mahomes, who is a magic man, limps into the locker room, and they come out and they win the game. Just spectacular.
They scored on every single possession in the second half, and they got a couple stops, and that shows how very few mistakes throughout the game. Like, they missed a field goal, but then also Jalen Hurts had the fumble that went for a touchdown. Those things add up at the end, and unfortunately, it was the holding call that everyone's been talking about at the very end. James Bradbury, who admitted after the game that he did hold. It's a perfect way for the NFL season to end, with the referees kind of taking over, not making it about them, but making a call at probably the worst time. But he did hold him, so I don't even know how you feel about that. I just didn't like how the game ended.
Yeah, there are two schools of thought, and I guess I'm not sure which one I fall into. I was bummed to see the holding call because I feel, as you do, that it skews the outcome, and it's like this, the refs skewing the outcome. On the other hand, the refs are responding to something that actually did happen. Don't you want the game settled in a fair way? But you don't get into that position unless you allow what you first were saying, which is that you allow KC to get down every single drive and score. I mean, this defense, I think it was exposed a bit. And by the end, you had, at the goal line, and then we'll move on, but at the goal line, you have wide open Kansas City receivers. How is that possible? I mean, at the NFL level, at the Super Bowl, you have no one. You twice. You have KC players completely uncovered. This is with essentially 7 yards to be defended. Usually that's an extremely crowded area of the field, right? Now, I give Andy Reid and the Chiefs credit for scheming that way, but I also think that's a failure of defense. So if you're an Eagles fan, I think that's tough. For somebody to be that wide open, come on. That's a blown
even the
assignment.
bigger plays, you see it happen for NFL defenses, maybe one or two times if you're a good defense, but yesterday the Chiefs were just so many plays went for huge yards, and it was like you said, like the defense, the Eagles defense was exposed. I was kind of biased towards the Chiefs the whole game since the Eagles did beat us last round. I also really didn't care, but I just didn't want to see Eagles fans win. That's a lot of people in the chat have been saying.
Yeah. They sold out on that huge blitz there. You really don't need to blitz in that situation if you're the Eagles. And, so when you sell it with that many guys blitzing, in a goal line situation, all you have to do is throw the ball 2.5 yards. So anyway, that was that. On to the, by the way, the Kelsey brothers, one Kelsey is playing for the Eagles, one Kelsey is playing for the Chiefs. Of course, the Chiefs' Kelsey has 2 Super Bowl rings, the other just 1. But a lot was made of that, and apparently they shared a moment. And I think, didn't I send you something on that, Albert? He said, F you, congratulations, or something. I think what the Kelsey brother who plays on the Eagles sent on Instagram an F you, congratulations. So, I mean, that was the nature of that. But anything else, Commissioner?
In the chat's asking about the status of Philly. It's just a couple cars. I think their internet's down, but it's not as big as pandemonium as I expected. But they are a little mad.
In the city, yeah.
In the actual, in Philadelphia.
Yeah. In terms of destruction, they did most of their destruction after they won the NFC title. They became NFC champs. But I have also blowback in the chat about the anthem. So let me get to that blowback about the anthem.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't know where it. Let me just look for the. I think it was Copper. Yeah, it says it was saying something about it doesn't celebrate. Let me go back, Copper, to try to give you your moment here, please. Mark, it doesn't celebrate war. It celebrates us surviving the British attack. This is in relation to our anthem. Okay, I'll grant you that. It was a war, all right, and it's not speaking to the essence of what America is. Is that what we're about? Surviving a British attack? No. I mean, I understand it was inspired by a British attack. Great. I understand what it was written about. What I'm saying is America should be reminded before football games, before every sporting event, over and over and over again, the anthem, anthem, anthem. Don't kneel for it. Put your hand over your heart for it. Sing the lyrics loudly. Take off your hat. Whatever. If you want that degree of respect to the anthem, make it about something that reflects America. The beauty of America, the freedom of America. It's not just repelling British colonialists. So that's where I am on that. But thank you, Copper. Mahomes got some special painkiller, says Randy. That's my guess. Too bad it's not available at CVS for the rest of us. It was, I thought about the painkiller thing, and it's funny you say this, Randy, because, painkillers mess with your head, but I'm sure they rubbed every kind of weird, lidocaine, lanacaine, whatever, right, into that area of Mahomes' leg that he was hurting. It's clearly something happened, but Lori says over 100 years after the war, it is about, over 100 years after the war, it is about. Doesn't it celebrate winning the War of 1812? Again, whatever war is celebrated, I'm so sick of war being what this country is about. That's what anthems are for. You want a folk song. says Colleen. Isn't America involved in pretty much all wars? I don't mean to laugh. There is considerable truth to so much money invested in the military. Yeah, says Viraj. Thank you. Yeah. Cortisone shot. That's interesting. Julie may be right. It might have just been a simple cortisone shot. It couldn't have been a painkiller per se for the reasons. You got to find something that doesn't mess with his head, you know. Let's pretend that America is all about pretty landscapes, which were not created by Americans. Right. I mean, no, look, part of the beauty and magic of America is where we live. And we didn't create it, but we can conserve it. And I actually like a song, and I didn't think we'd get off on this to this point, but I like a song, I like an anthem that speaks to that beauty. Because implied in speaking to that beauty is conserving and protecting that beauty, something which we do not do. And all you have to do to see how we don't protect it is take a ride through America with the open drilling and open dumping and the effluence, the runoff from all of these agricultural farms with pigs and cows, and that stuff contaminates soil. And so I don't mean to get off on a rant, but I'm just suggesting that celebrating the magic, even if it's the landscapes of America, the beauty of where we live, that's a real thing to be celebrated. And I don't mind celebrating that and thinking about the rest of the country and implying the freedoms and the responsibilities of being an American in the anthem. So there's that. Yeah, but don't forget, it's not really our country anyway. John Smith says, this land is the Native Americans' land. So true, of course. I mean, look, we're colonialists too. Just as we survived colonialism, we ended up being colonialists ourselves. So, anything else, Albert, in the chat that I need to pay attention to before I move on to John Slade says the Pledge of Allegiance is basically a lie and religious indoctrination. Well, it is indoctrination. That's absolutely right. I don't know the religious part, but I know what you're saying. It smacks of the same sort of indoctrination that you'll oftentimes find in a church or in a church school or whatever. I mean, you're right. You say it every day. You know, it's funny. It rolls over you when you're a kid. You don't even know really what you're, right?
Yeah, you're on autopilot. You're
exactly
like barely awake. You just stand up and do your thing. Like, oh God, another day of school.
Right. I know I've got to say this because, to get if I don't have this memorized, I get dinged. But the reality is I don't know what I'm saying when I'm a kid. So, anyway, questions about Rihanna. Why were Rihanna's dancers dressed like Arctic explorers from a 1910 polar expedition, says Tom. Albert, you're our costume guy.
Yep, we got that, and we also got people saying that they were in hazmat suits in the chat. I think she's very into fashion. She has her own brand, which in the middle of it's a makeup brand, Fenty, and in the middle of the performance, she did put on her own makeup to give herself a shout out. So big shout out, I guess.
Yeah, wow, wow.
Little cross promotion, but
big shout out.
I don't know, I thought it looked great. I thought the costumes looked great.
I thought so too. I mean, I think they want stuff that's visually striking, and I thought it worked. I thought her performance was outrageously great, and I'm not hanging out for the halftime show like a lot of people do, but man, it blew me out. And that platform 60 feet above the stadium, I mean, I'd be petrified, much less able to perform. She was spectacular. Absolutely spectacular.
And also, I loved how she didn't have to rely on others. She just did her own thing. It was just Rihanna, no cameos, just all her hits, back to back to back.
And as Albert said, I didn't realize she had so many hits. Really, really terrific. Yeah. Good stuff. Smash the like button like a boss while you're here. I mean, this is the place to do it.
Iron rod.
You know, whenever I'm on a YouTube channel, I watch it even for a second, I smash the like button. Costs nothing. And you want to kind of, it's a way to show some support. We are crowd-funded, I'll remind you. So if you have it in your heart, you can toss us a couple of dollars. Visit us at themarkthompsonshow.com. Click contribute, and you'll find a Patreon link. You'll also find a PayPal link, and that's a great way to support the show. Again, it is themarkthompsonshow.com. Click contribute, and you can support the show on an ongoing basis. And as I say, we count on you to make good things happen. So, big day. I will get to the shooting down of all of these different objects over different parts of North America. And I will get into a lot of that has to do with a couple of different elements that I will discuss. I do want to touch on the bomb train because that cannot be seen as a one-off incident. It has to be seen in context. I'll discuss that. But next, the magical Courtney joins. I will address the controversy last week. She was angry at me, as you'll remember. So we will get into that. I don't shy away from controversy, as you know. Smash the like button. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
It's fantastic.
Whoever is reducing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
That's not fake. That's real.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
What? It was great. I loved it. There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
There's never been anything like this.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
Where are my weed smokers at?
Supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do.
Morning. Why are you yelling?
Seriously, what the
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
Sayonara, sucker!
Come on, everybody. Yeah, smash the like button like a boss. Welcome. Support us any way you can. We love having this community here. Mondays bring a special time to the Big Mark Thompson Show. And even as I say that, I welcome in my other half who was annoyed with me last week. And I didn't really get it as to
What?
why. She was really annoyed, like really angry. She sent me a text during the show, which I shared. If you want to really relive how angry she was, you can go back to last Monday, and you yourself can see. I brought it up with Spencer Christian. Like, I don't know what you do in a situation like that. I was trying to do something good, and it turned out to be something bad. It was like a sitcom episode, you know, when somebody is actually trying to do something.
My
and
bad.
it turns into
I'm sorry.
big misunderstanding. So we'll get to it now. This
It was
is,
wrong, it was
Mark's,
stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Mark's murder mystery.
Welcome to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
And the star of Mark's Murder Mystery Monday is Courtney, everybody.
Yep. Hi.
Now, what was the problem? here's what I thought. And then we will get to the murder. I don't want to spend more than a minute or two on this, but because people who are regulars know that I was trying to do something good. They know that you were really angry last week. I normally, and it was actually a super that was created, a super, meaning it's superimposed upon the screen. I call it a super. It was this. I changed her banner title super to
identification with the show.
Yeah, Courtney, true crime analyst. It used to say Courtney, Mark's better half, and true crime analyst. And I felt, God, it's cheesy. I mean, you're more than just like my better half. You're not on the show for that reason. You have this abiding interest. You read incessantly, and you have about murder, and you have a voracious appetite for these different podcasts about murder. You cite these things like it's a PhD thesis. I wanted you to have just the title, Courtney, true crime analyst, and you sent me a text saying, how could you take it off the better half? What's wrong with you? What are you trying to tell me?
I don't know if I said that.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Well, I was surprised. I mean, I am here. I think in most part because I am your better half, and I know that your fans are really generous to me, and I think in large part that is because I am your better half. And so to have that suddenly gone without my prior knowledge of it being taken away was surprising.
Well, first of all, Albert's my better half.
I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Clearly.
No, Albert is...
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, he is my better half. But... So would you don't like Courtney, true crime analyst? Do you want me to change it? We can change it. Would you like us to? We can. Don't be embarrassed.
It was just surprising.
So would you like it changed though? Yes or no?
I don't know.
Well, why don't you think about it?
I need to think about it. Right, I'm on the spot now. I need to think about it. But yes, at last week I was surprised. So I wrote you a text message that maybe suggested and hinted at my surprise.
Yeah.
About the situation.
Give Courtney her own separate show. Someone says. Yeah.
Thank you.
Courtney, you're a queen, says Neiman.
Thank you.
And even today, it just says true crime analyst. Joe Box is pointing that out. Yeah,
yes.
But I mean,
thank you for fixing that, Mark.
Well, I didn't fix it because I didn't want to do anything without
Joe Box and little Anthony.
Anyway, all right. You are great, though, Courtney, says Julie, and you are great. We all know you're great.
Thank you. I've been demoted. Albert's taken my spot.
Albert is my better half. I'm sorry.
Get that.
It goes Albert, Calvin Wong, and then Kim, I suppose.
Exactly.
All right, go ahead.
Wow. Yeah. I'm rounding out the top 5, which is nice.
What do you have for us today?
Well, I was going to troll this a little bit with my story today.
Okay.
So I'm covering Clark Rockefeller, a man who went by 6 different names and 6 different titles.
Wow.
And so I thought that this would be fun, maybe, to cover in relation to what happened last week. So, Clark Rockefeller, my sources.
Yeah, Courtney likes to always source.
For me to source my
everything,
material.
and so she cites it.
The New York Times, Daily Mail, and 48 Hours, but also the Cult Leader podcast did a great job, and I listened to it several times. I thought he did a great job.
No.
So on February 21st, 1961, Christian Karl Gerhartsreiter, he's a con man who eventually went by the alias Clark Rockefeller, was born in Bergen, Germany.
All right.
He was born to a landscape painter and a seamstress and was raised there, but always had ambitions of coming to the U.S. He was obsessed with U.S. culture, but specifically movies.
Oh, okay.
He really wanted to be in the movie business.
When you want Albert to show a picture.
Okay, great. Can you go down to the home?
Albert, there's the house, yeah.
So that's his childhood home. So he grows up there with a painter and a seamstress, but he was always known as sort of the black sheep of the family. And so in that, again, he had these ambitions of leaving and going to the U.S. So if you just go up a little bit, Albert, I want to just one more. I want to touch on all of his names and titles.
Okay.
So he had 6 different names that I know of that he went by.
What?
I tried to list them in order, But it gets very confusing. Of course, also because he chose all names to begin with C for some reason.
But this guy really, if you're just listening on the podcast, would you've got them all listed here, 6 different names.
Yeah.
This guy with different titles.
With different titles.
Nuclear physicist, ship captain, TV producer, aristocrat, art collector, securities trader. He's like the George Santos of his time.
Yeah, he sounds like a Halloween party or something. Yeah, right. It's just absolutely crazy.
So all the so he started with Gehartsreiter.
Yeah, so he's born Christian Karl Gehartsreiter in 1961. And then he has the ambitions of moving to the U.S. He was this precocious teenager in Germany, and he meets this U.S. couple.
Precocious is a dang word.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
And they're from California, which is like all of his ambitions is to move there and become part of the movie industry. So eventually he goes to the U.S. He actually goes there as a teenager on a tourist visa in 1978. And by 1980s, he's living in San Marino. I'll just touch on this timeline really quickly. For those that can't see it, this story can get maybe a little bit confusing because you're talking about one person that has 6 different names. But effectively, he's known for really 2 big criminal activities, which is the kidnapping of his daughter. And the high-profile kidnapping of his daughter led to his arrest for the murder of somebody from 1985. And that all happened in 2008. Wow. So very far after the murder, he kidnaps his daughter, and that gets national attention, and then eventually he's arrested for the murder.
Wow.
Ooh, it's a wild idea. Just might work.
Yeah. So if you go down just a little bit, Albert.
That's the home.
Thank you. You can stop here. Yeah. So in 1980s, he lives in San Marino. He's allegedly
which is outside of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Pasadena.
He's allegedly going to USC, but there are no records of him actually attending the college. But when he's in San Marino in the 1980s, at this point, he's going by Christopher Mountbatten Chichester. And he's claiming to be a relative of Lord Mountbatten. And he's also, again, claiming to be a movie producer who's at USC.
Wow.
Maybe the most egregious of his offenses is that he illegally votes in the 1980 U.S. presidential elections for Reagan. He has a license he's procured illegally, and he uses that, and he eventually votes in the elections.
Wow.
That's not fake.
Yeah.
That's real.
Well, it actually is fake, though, is the thing. But it's real that he voted. Yeah, okay.
He moves into the guest house of Dee Dee Sohus. And this is, for those
That's
watching
Linda
it,
Sohus?
This is
she was
her
called
children.
Dee Dee? Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So her 2 children are John and Linda. So Dee Dee owns this home, and her 2 children eventually move there and are kind of creeped out by Christopher Mountbatten Chichester, a.k.a. Clark Rockefeller. And so he's like, I gotta get rid of these guys. Like this, they're gonna cramp my style because I'm here with Dee Dee. She's
the older
yeah,
lady.
she's the woman who owns the house.
And she's the money.
Yeah, and she's maybe, likes to hit the sauce a little bit. So he sees money, he sees getting into her trust, he sees her son and her daughter-in-law as being challenges toward getting into the trust. Now, his daughter-in-law was 6 feet tall, and the son was 5'4".
So the John and Linda
Yes.
Sohus, Dee Dee's kids, one was 6 feet tall. The
daughter. So if you're
daughter.
looking at the photos, you can see the difference. But I bring it up actually because part of his defense in the end was that
he couldn't have done it because she's such a larger person.
That maybe she kills John because she's such a much larger person.
So John is going to die in this story.
Yeah.
The son.
Yep. So in 1985, Linda and John go missing. And so nobody knows where they are. And he starts to tell, you can stop here. He starts to tell Dee Dee, the alleged alcoholic mother, that they've moved to Paris and New York on a secret mission for the U.S. government.
Wow.
Now, one thing I couldn't find and understand.
And this is their new hope.
is that postcards were coming from Paris to the house, to Dee Dee, and to their friends and other family members.
So someone actually
allegedly
in Paris
from,
is having to send this. Wow.
But that part I don't understand, and I've shown an example of one of the postcards that went to Linda's friend. But he somehow created a system in him by which he was using these fake postcards to verify sort of proof of life, if you will.
Yeah.
So he leaves.
We have a for those just listening, we have one of those postcards up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This went to Linda's employer.
Okay.
So he's like, okay, I got to get out of here. Things are getting a little hot. So he leaves and he moves to.
Oh, so he decides to bail on Dee Dee and that whole scene.
He bails, yeah.
But the kids are still missing. Okay.
Kids are missing, and he's like, I got to get out of here. So he does what any sane person would do and steals their truck and moves to Greenwich, Connecticut. So the truck is registered now.
Wild idea. Just might work.
Christopher. The truck is now registered to Christopher Crowe in Greenwich, Connecticut. And so he moves there. He goes by Christopher Crowe, and a very strange twist in the story. He gets work on Wall Street using a fake Social Security number. And that Social Security number is of Son of Sam, David Berkowitz. He somehow got David Berkowitz's Social Security number and was using it, and then found out and fired from his jobs on Wall Street. At this point, again, he's living in Greenwich, Connecticut, going by the name of Christopher Crowe.
Wow.
I know. So he moves to New York after Greenwich. He's still somewhat in finance and banking. And in the early 1990s...
Do any of these other pictures, you want us to go up or still on the postcard? Do you want us to...
you can go... Yeah, you can go down. You can stop here on the remains, yeah.
Okay.
So he moves to New York, and he decides that he needs a better name. That, Christopher Crowe's not working. He can't go back to Chichester. So he goes by now Clark Rockefeller. No. And he
Clark Rockefeller
himself,
sounds like a name from The Simpsons, doesn't it?
It does. And I thought Clark is
Hello,
such
Clark
a weird
Rockefeller. What can I do for you?
name. But it's actually the surname of Mary Todd Hunter Clark, who married Nelson Rockefeller, who was the governor of New York. So he lives in New York, and he's claiming to have this really, really impressive art collection, that he's a billionaire. But of course, all the art is fake. He's also claiming to help third world countries manage their debt, which is very strange and bizarre.
That's a good bluff, because not many people are, that you won't run into that much. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, again, this is all happening in the early 1990s. And in 1994, a family moves into Dee Dee's home because she's passed, and they decide to renovate the home. And that's where, if you're watching, you can see the two images of they're digging the backyard to put in a pool. And in that, they find a box, and in the box, they find John Sohus's body.
Wow! But not the daughter.
Linda's never found. The daughter-in-law's never found. Yeah, so you can see an image of the house.
I see.
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
Which is a large house for San Marino. Actually, I think she had a couple of dollars, and then they found this box, and in the box, and again, he wrapped John's body in these plastic bags. From the University of Southern California and the University of Wisconsin, two of his alma maters.
Oh,
I mean,
my God.
I know. He can't help himself.
That was,
So in 1995, this happened in 1994. In 1995, you can go down.
Next
one, Albert. He marries Sandra Boss. So he meets Sandra at a party for Clue, the board game.
Well, that's kind of eerie too, right? Here's
weird.
A murderer.
It's very strange.
How about me in the backyard with a knife?
It's very strange, and also, it's all very weird. But she was actually a very well compensated partner, I think, in a management firm. And so he marries her. She takes care of the family. They have this child named Ray, aka Sukes, and eventually, Sandra wants to divorce him because she's starting to see that he's a little bit of a psychopath. And Clark, who's now going by Clark Rockefeller, at this point, he kidnaps his daughter. So on one of these exchanges where he's visiting his daughter, Sandra's already asked for the divorce. He kidnaps the daughter, and then that goes as an Amber Alert throughout the United States.
Okay, I want you to hold that thought. When we come back, I want to pick up this story.
Okay.
All right. So Clark Rockefeller, as he's now referring to himself, has just kidnapped his daughter from Sandra as they're in the middle of a divorce.
Yes.
And it would appear that he's murdered at least one person. Two are missing, but they discover the body of one. right?
Yes.
That's John. So, Courtney, stand by. I want to take a quick break and then more with Courtney on Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about it for Steve Moskowitz right now? I wanted to get a moment to talk to Steve. Steve, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being such a big part of getting our show launched. You know, it's funny. I was seeing something related to taxes, and I thought of you. Just this morning, I think it was earlier, I saw that, you know, they're looking at different ways to tax the wages associated with gratuities. And I thought of what you often say, which is that they don't go after the richest people. They go after everybody else, and they find new ways to get money out of those people. Now, reasonable minds can differ about whether or not that should be taxable income, but I guess what I'm getting at is what you talk about all the time, that those of us who can't afford a boardroom full of Steve Moskowitzes, we can afford to get in touch with you and see if our business might be entitled to some protections from the tax man that we otherwise wouldn't know about.
That's so true, Mark. And what happens is that's why you see the Fortune 500 having these tremendous benefits. There's so much in the tax law, but the Fortune 500 have an army of people like me. And it's the small business that really suffers, the small business, because they can't afford to have even a full-time person like me. But the nice part is we offer just the amount of services they need, and they can afford it because it's a fraction of the price of a full-time person like me would be. And look at ERC. This is where the government is giving away up to $26,000 for every employee that you had in 2020 and 2021 that qualifies. And so many people qualify, and there's two ways. There's an objective way, a math way. Did your gross revenue go down by a certain amount? Yes or no, it's math. But so many, and it's really easy to determine that. When I do one, I say, wow, that's it, it's quick and easy. But there's so many people that don't qualify on the drop in gross revenue, but would qualify on the other test, the subjective test. It's just more work. It takes more time. We may have to meet with a client several times, give them homework. But the bottom line is there's so many people I've spoken to that qualify that were turned away by somebody else.
Because these are like chop houses, Steve, where they just bring them in and they just run the numbers real quick and they don't actually do the heavy lifting.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of those where with the ERC, the IRS is warning people that there's a tremendous amount of fraud going on because those chop houses just come up, they just pop up. Anybody can form a company and they do ERC. And then when the IRS has a few questions, those people are going to be long gone. Our law firm, we've been around for over 30 years. We're here to get you everything to which you're legally entitled, no more, no less, keep you out of trouble. And you have to watch out for the two extremes. The one extreme is people telling you you qualify for something and you don't. The other extreme is like that person I talked to you about just the other day that was entitled to $900,000 and was so afraid of being audited that said, well, no, I'll forget it. To me, 900 grand is a lot of money.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, that is, it's funny that I kind of see like you're so afraid of an audit that you just don't even want to claim that government money. I mean, that must expose other insecurities, but you really tried to get that person to see the light. And it was just great. Yeah, I know. It's a great story. Only for someone to be able to walk away from almost $1 million, it's extraordinary. But
it's a crying shame is what it is, because just like I say, for everybody in this audience that drives a car, at some point a cop may want to talk to you. So what? As long as you haven't done anything wrong, you should take everything. What I've talked about on radio and TV my whole career, you should take everything to which you're legally entitled, no more and no less. And if you do that, you get the max benefits and you'll have no trouble.
Yeah. And I think the thing that is great about that story, also from the standpoint of our listeners and viewers, is that she didn't think she was entitled to any money. You found $900,000. I mean, I think that's what could be the benefit to so many. Reach Steve at 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. You too might think, hey, I'm a small business. I don't think I'm really entitled to any money. That is out there, ERC. It's still in effect. 888 tax deal. You can also find Steve online. It's Moskowitz, LLP.com, Moskowitz, Moskowitz, LLP.com. Steve, great to talk to you. Let's talk next hour.
Thanks, Mark.
Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Right on. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Back to our murder mystery. Courtney is here leading us through.
Yes.
So this guy with all of his different aliases, he marries this woman.
He marries Sandra Boss.
He deep sixed and ditched the wealthy lady.
Yeah.
And yet, Dee Dee, right. What was her last name? Sorry?
Sohas.
Sohas. And John Sohas, one of her sons, went missing along with the daughter and his body.
Yeah.
The daughter-in-law, okay.
Yeah, and his body is recovered when they're renovating the home for a pool in 1994, and he went missing in 1985.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we in the story?
Okay.
He's now kidnapped again, his daughter.
So he marries Sandra Boss. She's really the breadwinner of the family. They have a child, Suki, also Ray is her name, but she goes by Suki. And Sandra comes to him and wants a divorce and pays him $800,000 to kind of go away.
Wow.
She moves away, and on a court, on a visitation with a court-appointed chaperone, he kidnaps Suki. And an Amber Alert goes out, and he
Not much of a chaperone, by the way, apparently. Yeah.
Social worker. And at this point, he has moved to Baltimore, Maryland. He lives in an apartment there, but he's looking for a home. And actually, thank you for moving this up, Albert. He meets with a real estate agent who eventually is the one that calls the police. And he's calling himself, now I've heard two different things, Charles Smith, but he went by Chip and Chuck.
Oh, that's good.
And so he's looking for homes, and he decides on a home based on a street name called Ploy. Yeah.
Ploy Street
So
is where
he
he moves?
wants to move to this home because it's on Ploy Street. Now, if you go down one, it'll be I'll show you the carriage house. So this is the home that he wants to buy. It's on Ploy Street.
This is because You'll Never Catch Me Street was not available?
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah.
Wow.
The I Only Murdered One Person Street was not available. So the real estate agent flags him. A bunch of people are now flagging him because there's this Amber Alert, and he's all over the U.S. as Clark Rockefeller having kidnapped his daughter. So the police are getting all these calls. They figure out that now Chuck Smith has a catamaran. If you go down, he has a boat.
Albert, the next slide.
He has a boat.
Okay.
And so they devise a plan with the people who operate the pier to get him down to the pier, saying that the boat is taking on water so that they can arrest him at this point for the kidnapping of his daughter. He is found guilty of that, and then he is charged with the murder of John Sohas, and he is eventually found guilty of the murder of John Sohas in 2013. Remember, he died in 1985, and he's sentenced to 27 years.
So, Kurt, when was so that's a picture of Kurt Rockefeller.
Well, so this is
Clark Rockefeller.
This is some of the latest pictures of Clark Rockefeller that I could find. These are about 2010 to 2011.
Okay.
I put in this photo of the Getty family because a lot of people were convinced he was a Getty because they said he had the same jawbone and jaw structure as the Getty family, which is very strange. But because he was running around the sort of important circles in New York, the billionaire circles of New York, a lot of people knew the Rockefellers and kept saying like, "Oh, I ran into your cousin Clark," and they had no idea what they were talking about.
That's not fake. That's
real.
So he's not a Rockefeller.
He's not a Rockefeller,
Okay.
and
you want to go down a little bit, Albert, to the next.
So this is the Rockefeller
Rockefeller
family. I think famously, unfortunately, Michael Rockefeller, went missing on a trip to New Guinea. He's all the way on the right. And then if you go down, so now, from what I understand, Sandra and Suki Ray Boss are living in London, or at least outside of the U.S., trying to escape from everything that's
What
happened
to the daughter-in-law?
She was never found.
Wow.
So he was only charged for the murder of John Sohas.
Wow.
And it was a lot of circumstantial evidence. So they never found like a murder weapon or anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he was killed by blunt force trauma to the head, stabbing, and there was blood found on some of the carpet inside of the guest house, which is where, at the time, Christopher Chichester lived.
Wow.
So that connected him back to the murder, as well as those plastic bags from the two universities
that
he went
was not
to.
well thought out. Yeah.
So I thought that we would cover this because of his many titles and many names.
Very, yes, I mean, very George Santos-y and with a murder, dash of murder.
Yes. Oh,
Courtney,
see, thank you. See, Albert has changed my title, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, Albert.
Yeah. Well, okay. Again, I thought I had changed your title for the better, but clearly I was wrong, and I got yelled at for it. Courtney, thank you.
Thank you for
smash the
having
like
me.
button like a boss for Courtney. Courtney, thank you.
Thank you.
With your iron rod.
Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, I love it. Courtney, bravo.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you.
Yeah, bravo. Yes, Courtney, thank you, and thanks to Albert. Very, very cool. That story had it all. And misdirection. It had aliases. Missing person that's never found. And it's all there in that one.
It was all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
Clear as crystal. That's true. It's all there.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
No, that's what I meant to say. Yeah. Let's take a break. We come back. I want to get into the bomb train, and I want to get into the flying objects.
Does that count as a stories from the sky? We could just do a stories from the sky segment because the balloons are in the sky.
Because you're right. You're right. Do we have? I don't think our artist in the North Bay did a stories from the sky graphic for us. Am I right?
No, I don't think.
I don't think we have it.
Let
so
me go
that's
to
something.
the archive real quick and see if we have any.
We have these. We have a very talented graphics artist who's a viewer and listener to the show. And she's provided us with different things for different segments, and she's even given us some caricatures and that sort of thing. But I don't believe we've done stories from the sky, and I don't believe we have a chunk of Trump either. So that's something to get started on. Talented artist from the North Bay who doesn't want her actual identity revealed, which is why we refer to her that way. I'm also getting some grief in the chat about the way I handled the controversy, so we'll get to that when we continue. Smash the like button. Thank you for being here. We are excited. Albert will pick up all these things as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
It's fantastic.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
That's not fake. That's real.
You just don't get it, really. You don't.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Why are you yelling?
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for. And I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
I'll go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
My bad. I'm sorry. And I want to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
You cannot say you love your country.
Sayonara, sucker!
What up, everybody? Welcome. It's hour 2, and it is just an opportunity to say hello to you and thank you for being part of this community that has grown on this new platform, YouTube. It has some limitations, and it also has some opportunities. One of the opportunities is that it really is a community, so that people get to know each other, and we get to know you, and it's kind of cool, to be honest. So I really like that part of it. If you haven't yet, smash the like button like a boss. It's the way we stay relevant.
Your iron rod.
And it'll allow our videos to be served to different people in kind of a randomizing way that they do it with all the mathematics, essentially, of YouTube. And if you hit the notification bell, we will be able to notify you. YouTube does it. But whenever there's a new video. So I understand we do a live show every day, and we break out videos from it. But there'll also be some additional videos as the year goes on. We are broadening and evolving, and I want you to be able to get all of those too. Some of them will be short, some of them will be longer, whatever it might be. We don't want you to be at least be aware of them. So hit that notification bell. It's a little bell under the picture as you watch it on YouTube. So this is a question that is legitimate. Bill Lundgren, I like to call him Bill, even though I've never met the man. William Lundgren, is Mark taking a leak during these musical interludes? The answer is sometimes, yes. Yeah. And without Kim here today, she is celebrating her son's birthday. It's his 9th birthday, and she's taking 2 days off to celebrate it. When I was 9, I was lucky to get a cake. This kid gets 2 days of celebration. Probably just an excuse to take a couple of days off, and I respect that. I really do. I really do.
Mark, I remember we recorded one of those post-show podcasts that the old station made us do, and you told me a story about a bike and how you always wanted a bike, and I felt like this was one of my better jokes because at the end of the whole thing, I asked you if that bike had the enormous wheel in the front and the tiny wheels in the back.
That was really it's a reference to my age, that it was so long ago. Is that what that is? Is that what that is, Albert?
It was a wild idea. I tried it out. But
yeah.
You know
I'm not
what,
sure
Cal? You created havoc and chaos.
That's exactly you did.
I didn't receive any feedback from the audience, from the listeners, so maybe it didn't play out that well.
Yeah, maybe no one appreciated it. You're trying it again to see if you get any support? Yeah. Did you talk about your dad's condition? From Beth, I see you're broadcasting from your home. The reason I came home was because my dad had been there almost 3 weeks, and my dad's condition is stable, and so I thought I'd come back here because things, there are a lot of reasons to come back, honestly, related to just kind of, as you might imagine. But I am only here for about a week. I'm going to try to push it to 10 days, and then I'll go back to my dad. It's, they're tough. It's a tough situation. It's tough to know. Obviously, I rushed there thinking that my presence would make a difference, and it did. I think it really made a difference. So I was really glad I was there. But I told my father, I said, hey, look, I've got to go back to the West Coast. I'm only going to be gone for a week or so, and then I'm going to come back and be with you. So and that's the hope. And, I told you, and then we'll move on. But my dad calls my name all day and all night. It's weird because when I walk into the hospital, all the people who are attending to my father just on the floor, and the nurses who are in the room, they're going, "Oh my God, your dad, he will not stop calling your name." So you feel a little, in a bad way, like you're needed all the time. A bad way meaning you can't possibly be there all the time, and so you feel like it's special when you can be there, but by the same token, you wish you could be there more. So, but Dad was rallying in incremental ways and is stable, and that's why I'm here. And if you go back over our YouTube shows, we had Dad on. Albert, we had Mom and Dad on from the very first shows, the beginning of the Mark Thompson Show on KGO. So
those were some of the more popular segments. I've never received when we had the text line. Nobody texted more about a segment other than probably Florida, because there's just wild stuff in Florida. But all the gracious and the very kind messages in the text about the segments with your parents were always nice to be reading, not hate text, And now we have a public forum, so everyone can see the text here.
It's true. Anyway, very cool that everybody is so on board and sending. I believe in the energy. I don't know if it matters, but I so do believe in it. So thank you for all the good energy for my dad. He's a super good guy. He is. I'll say this, and then I really will move on. He's got some pretty big stories. He is so pleasant. He is not like I would be. He's not irascible and, sort of ill-tempered. And, he's got to be going, irascible would be a ding word, by the way. But he's everybody says it. All of the nurses, all of the attendants go, yeah, your dad is just such a pleasant guy. He's just so, I use the word sweet, but I don't know about that. You know what I mean? Just like he's very good-natured. And as a result, it makes being around him better. I'm not pleasant. No, I am. I think I'd be, but I'm, Tom's saying you're not pleasant, Mark. I'm sort of, I'm outgoing. I want to know, you know what I mean? I'm like really, I have all of that. Like I want to get to know somebody, and my dad isn't like that, but he does want to get to know you. In fact, he's very much about other people, I find. That's one of the most outstanding features. When I was in college, I'd come home with college buddies, and he would ask them about stuff that they had related to him like a year prior. He goes, how's that coming, your interest in so-and-so? And I know you're at Dun & Bradstreet. What's the story with that? Are you following up on that? What is it? It's remarkable because he legitimately cares about a lot of other people. So very, very cool. So anyway, that's Dad's deal. He's hanging in there, and we rock on. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, Albert, I asked you about the stories from the sky. Do you
I was not able to find the slide, so we're gonna just default to not blame, but we did not remind our artist in the North Bay, or I will find it in a couple hours.
No. I don't think she did a stories from the sky. Yeah, I think that's it's fair to just say we'll throw out the request. I think it's interesting in this story about yet another object being shot down. A fourth one that the U.S. general, who they queried about it, is saying he doesn't rule out anything, including like an extraterrestrial life form. All right. Let me help you, General. You can probably pretty well rule that out. I don't know how, what the budget is on knocking down that story, but so you're telling me that an extraterrestrial civilization launched a slow-moving craft through a low altitude, relative to what we saw, for example, with the Chinese balloon, through a low altitude trajectory, yet they were able to traverse the universe, even if it's just the galaxy, even if it's just the solar system. It would take an extraordinary, but I mean transcendental reimagining of physics to be able to visit our planet. And then they launch this slow-moving thing that can be shot down by the American military? I don't know. Seems pretty squirrely to me. But an F-16 launched a heat-seeking AIM-9X missile at this identified object. and they took down this high-flying object over Lake Huron. This happened Sunday. This is the fourth of these different objects taken down. Other than the first balloon, which China has acknowledged was theirs, the Pentagon doesn't yet know what the objects are or where they came from. Asked directly, a senior military official did not rule out the possibility that their provenance, and that would be a ding word, could be extraterrestrial. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. This is the guy who is the commander of U.S. North Command and the North American Aerospace Defense Command. So he's got quite a lot on his plate. Intel community and counterintelligence community, I'm not so impressed. Just saying. I haven't ruled out anything, he said, when asked if aliens could be involved. The Pentagon is now trying to obtain debris from each of the 4 shoot-downs in an effort to learn more about the crafts penetrating North American airspace. I'm not going to categorize them as balloons, he said. We're calling them objects for a reason. I'm not going to categorize even how they stay aloft. None of the flying objects have posed a threat to anything on the ground, he says, but they have been assessed to be safety hazards to civilian air traffic and potential surveillance threats as well. One of the things that allows us to be more aware of them is apparently this radar that NORAD uses has been tweaked, so it's now more sensitive to a lot of these objects that are floating by, which to me is sort of like, really, guys? We hadn't tweaked that before? Okay. He says, we've adjusted some of those gates, they call them, the radar, to give us better fidelity on seeing smaller objects. You can also filter out by altitude, and so with some adjustments, we've been able to get a better categorization of radar tracks now. That's a quote. So, look, NORAD's monitoring all that airspace across North America, as you know, and so they picked up these different objects. The Chinese balloon, you could see with the naked eye over Montana, so you really couldn't bury that. This is true, what is being said in the chat, and so I'll read it. John Smith, pilots of U.S. Air Force F-35 fighters sent to intercept the mystery object over Alaska on Friday, say that whatever it was had been, quote, interfering with sensors of their aircraft before they shot it down. Okay, but let me be clear, as John wrote it, let me be clear. Let me say this clearly, because this is very important, what I'm about to say. That's in my John Rothman impression. But let me be clear, that doesn't mean jack when it comes to extraterrestrials. Any number of things associated with surveillance could mess with the instrumentation and with the interference. The quote is, interfering with the sensors on their aircraft. That's a really broad statement. And that could be done by any number of domestic technologies that could be launched by various either domestic concerns that were just trying to mess with us. I mean, there are technologically smart people who are launching their own crap from this country or from Canada, or it could be from a foreign government. All these foreign governments, all of them, the friendly ones, the ones that are on enemy footings with us, or enemy footing, they all have technologies that could do what he's talking about. So maybe the pilot had his cell phone on, says JR. Remember when they used to do that? They would go through the cabin and have us turn off those cell phones, and they'd go through like a prison warden, on a bed check. It was so offensive, and the way that they would talk to us, you know what I mean? Put that down. Put that down. Is your cell phone off? I'm going to all the way off. Off. It's like, wow. And of course, we all knew what? Doesn't matter.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Casey gets it. Exactly. What is disconcerting, says John, is that the U.S. government would even shoot at advanced civilizations. Oh, UAPs, those are like the UFOs, the new abbreviation. And they have. Yeah. Well, I guess it's disconcerting. I don't know. When you're in that area, it's what we do. As I was saying at the beginning of the show, we shoot at stuff. We either shoot it down or we shoot each other. We love shooting. Welcome to America. This is our thing.
Thank you.
We put shooting in campaign ads. Everybody wants a right to carry. I mean, whoever's object that is lucky that there weren't 700 Americans shooting rifles at it. We can't wait to break it out so that we can empty a clip into whatever. Well, Mark, technically it's not a clip. You use the word clip, and it's I don't know. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, the cell phone thing was to limit overloading of cell phone towers. Can you double check that, Colleen? I'm guessing. Here's why I don't buy that. Because why would the plane and the airline and the FAA care about overloading cell phone towers? Why is that their area of concern? You might be right. I just had never heard that, and it just doesn't. I don't see where it quite tracks. But anyway, thank you for that. Maybe. I love a good Star Trek reference. I think they shot down Kirk and Spock in a transporter. They were coming here to talk to the whales. David Odell, very good reference to the, what was it? The Star Trek 4. Yeah. That was the one with, that was shot in San Francisco. A lot of it was shot in San Francisco. Okay, anyway, that's the story on that object. I do think this creates another area that could be a flashpoint for this country, so I'm concerned about it from that standpoint. So I think they do have to be very careful about where this trail of, aerospace breadcrumbs leads them, because wherever it goes could very much determine where we are in terms of getting on a war footing. It's happening already. The Chinese are saying, well, the U.S. flies these spy balloons into Chinese airspace. In fact, they're saying that we've flown balloons into Chinese airspace more than 10 times. So China claiming today, this is just happening right now, that the U.S. flew spy balloons into Chinese airspace more than 10 times since January of last year.
What?
This is without Beijing's permission. I think that goes without saying. U.S.-China relations are already on edge, they note, after the U.S. shot down a large high-altitude balloon on February 4th. I mean, no offense, China, but you did say it was a weather balloon. Then, I don't know what right. It turns out it's not. There's a lot of...
Yes, they try to say, oh, yeah, what was this? And then now they're doing the classic, well, you started it.
Right.
That's what I got from this. That's basically how I read this article. No, you started it. So
That's exactly right. The Chinese spokesperson also said U.S. Warships and planes were being used to gather intelligence on China. That happened 657 times since the start of last year. So they say the U.S. is without a doubt, this is a quote, the world's largest surveillance, habitual offender, and surveillance empire. Well, there you go. That's I don't know if it's quite... You got that going for you, U.S. You're the world's largest surveillance, habitual offender, and surveillance empire. So, but I guess what I'm saying, and this really dovetails well with it, is that you do end up in a situation where you could easily find yourself in a conflict of one sort or another if you're not careful. But, and I get that there is surveillance of all sorts being perpetrated or planned all the time from all these different countries. I mean, it's spy versus spy. Do you remember the Mad Magazine thing where you had spy versus spy? It really is that. But I think in this case, it's just, there are two things happening. Some are legitimate spy vehicles that are launched from China or other countries or entities, and the other is we're not sure what they are. So anyway, how long is my question to you? Will it be before another object is discovered and then shot down by this country? It's not a There's no
I'm
right
sure
answer.
there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are already planning to troll the U.S. government with these balloons, and that's the first thing I thought. I thought this story's going to happen, then we're going to see a whole bunch of balloons, and everybody's going to try to mess with whatever's going on. But
yeah, we're not going to war over balloons with China. Randy's right about that, but the reason that doesn't really track either. It's not a question of going to war over the balloons. It becomes one more thing that puts you on uncomfortable footing with a superpower. That's what it does. It creates an increased tension. It's not that you're going to war over the balloon. It's that, look, the last diplomatic effort, and it was probably just a photo op more than anything else, because from an agenda standpoint, nothing really lines up. But our Secretary of State, he has to cancel this trip to China over this incident. So you can just see how you begin to get yourself into some problems. So that's what I mean when I say, it gets you into increased tensions of one sort or another. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Put it together for Steve Moskowitz, everybody. What's up, Steve?
Mark, I'm just really looking forward to having all of your listeners understand what the ERC can do for them. It's just, I talk to people all day long about it, and it's amazing. I just got off the phone with a very nice couple that own a business together. It looks like they may be able to get up to $1.25 million. This is a gift from the government.
Wow.
Working on it as much as I do, it still boggles me how the government's just giving money away. We've never had anything like this before in our history. But at least the government finally is doing something to help small business. When big business gets into trouble, as we remember, the government rushes right in with its checkbook. Up until now, when small business gets in trouble, that's too bad. You owe some taxes. And the bottom line is the government's finally doing something for small business.
Somebody asked in the chat.
Small business, we're talking about 500 employees or less. So that's pretty big small business.
Yeah, that's
anywhere
that's
from 1 person to 500. We really, really want to help.
Someone asked in the chat about ERC, and is it really still out there? And you're saying, yeah, very much so.
It really is. This is an unlimited government program where it's not like PPP, where first come first. Maybe people are having trouble with that too. When the PPP came out, the government said, okay, they're setting aside a certain amount of money. And when that money is used up, that's it, program over, goodbye. So it was a mad scramble to get it. And people said, things are going so quickly, and they couldn't get it, and the government ran out of money. The government learned from that, and this is general treasury. There's no special fund. This is the Treasury of the United States. So it's virtually unlimited. And yes, it's just there for the taking. And it just amazes me, anybody that doesn't make sure if they're qualified, and if they are, take every dollar to which they're legally entitled. This finally, government does stuff for big business all the time. Finally, they're doing something for small business.
And Steve can help you get it. And he's detailed before the fact that, like a lot of other outfits, they kind of cropped up overnight when ERC was announced because it was this pot of gold. But they didn't do the work necessary to see if you could actually get the money. If you didn't qualify on the simple math, they just pushed you aside and moved on to the next. But Steve actually does the work, and that's why you see these big amounts coming in through Moskowitz. I mean, it's a great fact that the Moskowitz people actually do the heavy lifting to get you the government money. And that's oftentimes what it takes. It's 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. Call them from wherever you are in California, wherever you are in the country, 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also see Steve online. Drop him a line 24 hours a day. Tell him you heard about it here on The Mark Thompson Show. It is MoskowitzLLP.com, MoskowitZ, MoskowitzLLP.com, or call him 888-TAX-DEAL. Steve, appreciate you, and thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, pal. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Right on. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to follow up on something in the chat. Is this from David Odell? Do we start shooting down spy satellites next? Not sure I see a difference. Well, the difference most immediately is that there's no designated airspace for spy satellites. So, but in keeping what you're talking about, the space above the Earth is getting crowded. And as you're also aware, there are orbiting satellites and then geostationary satellites that will orbit like in conjunction with the Earth. And regardless, that airspace is getting crowded as well. But the difference, just to speak to your comment, is that we have airspace over our country. So a, quote, violation of that airspace is why it's different than a satellite. So imagine the outrage over the balloons if they were shaped like parade-style giant M&Ms. That's, again, it's a wild idea, but it just might work. Yeah. If they'd only thought about the shape.
Yeah, with some high heels on, and
yes.
Fox News would be wall-to-wall coverage on that.
It would be. Now this is interesting. This is a rando comment. Should I put this in? Why not? I love the chat for the rando comments. God gets us. I hope God will do something about putting an end to hip-hop halftime shows. Yeah! Look at the hip-hop halftime shows.
Did you see how they were moving their hips, Mark? That is not appropriate for television.
Yes, that is true.
You know, back in my day, we had Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson.
That's right. Yeah. That was real offensive.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
I don't know about that. But I definitely think that I thought there's I've got where's my Lord drop? I feel like that's the
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
That's the one. Thank you. Yeah. What if he is happy? What if the Lord wants more hip-hop? Wouldn't that be a shocker? What if the Lord's saying, yeah, finally, you know why there's hip-hop? Because finally I was able to get it into the halftime show. The Lord is, you always hear different people telling you what
Rihanna
the Lord's
was closer
thinking.
to the Lord. She was like hundreds of feet up in the air. So I don't know what they're complaining about.
Exactly.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Yeah, right. See, and God's worried about a lot of stuff, but he can do that because he's God, or she's God, or they're God. I wanted to mention what's happening with this. They call them bomb trains, these trains that carry deadly chemicals and toxic chemicals. And when they derail, it's essentially like a big toxic bomb going off. And this is what was happening in Palestine. And I don't blame these residents for wondering if it's safe. There is the plume, if you're looking on YouTube, from this train that was derailed. And in that plume is, without question, a mix of highly carcinogenic chemicals. They know they're toxic chemicals. I'm going to mention the chemicals in relation to breaking news just today, and then I want to double back to the train derailment because it happens in a context. 3 additional chemicals are discovered on this East Palestine train that was derailed. East Palestine, Ohio, comes this news. 3 more chemicals that were on the Norfolk Southern train that derailed just over a week ago are now being identified. Those chemicals are dangerous, say officials. Quote, we basically nuked a town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open, said Sil Caggiano, a hazardous materials specialist. Because you understand what's happening in Palestine, Ohio, is a little what happened with COVID, which is, you know what? We got to get back to normal. So let's get in there. Let's get to those restaurants in the congregate settings. It's okay. No more mask restrictions. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's declare it's over. But in this case, you're only a week out from this accident, and you have particulate matter that is carcinogenic without question. raining down on this town. The U.S. EPA sent a letter to Norfolk Southern stating that this ethyl glycol monobutyl ether and ethyl hexyl acrylate and isobutylene were also in the rail cars that were derailed. That wasn't reported a week ago. The specialist in, he's a hazardous materials specialist, Caggiano is his name. He says that this, what did I say it was? Let me make this bigger so I can see it. These are complicated
Would you
chemicals.
consider those three toxins ding words because they were consecutive, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Just for the
Thank you.
scientific community. Maybe.
Yeah, for the you're absolutely right. Caggiano says that this ethylhexyl acrylate is especially worrisome. He says it's a carcinogen, and contact with it can cause burning and irritation in the skin and eyes. Breathing it in can irritate the nose and throat and cause coughing and shortness of breath. Isobutylene is known to cause dizziness and drowsiness when inhaled. I was surprised, he said, this is a quote, when they quickly told the people they can go back home, but then said if they feel like they want their homes tested, they can have them tested. I would have rather they did all the testing before they had everybody return. Caggiano says it's possible some of these chemicals could still be present in homes and on objects until everything is cleaned thoroughly. There's a lot, this is a quote, there's a lot of what ifs, and if we're going to be looking at this thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wondering, gee, cancer clusters could pop up. Well water could go bad. This is part of a bigger story, but, thank you, Calvin Wong, for this statement, because I think there is an aspect to this that is so true, and it puts it in a real context. Make the chemical company pay for increased railroad safety. Well, I think that speaks to two things. One is the way we've socialized, you understand, the risk that these chemical companies and these railroad companies put us in as Americans. We've socialized it, right? What do I mean by that? I mean that when a train is carrying toxic chemicals and derails, as it has, and rains down on an entire community, contaminating them with carcinogenic toxic substances, who pays to clean it all up? We do. Who pays to put basic health provisions in place and to evaluate whether or not there's a health threat to this community going forward? We do. Who pays for the cancer clusters that crop up and for the ongoing health care needed as a result of this horror show that is the transportation of these chemicals? We do. The chemical companies aren't asked to pay, nor are the railroads. And even if they are in subsequent lawsuits, the amount they pay is a fraction of the legitimate damage that is done to people's health. I mean, you've got, this is not a game. These are real toxic chemicals here. And now the other layer to this occurs in a context of these train companies. You'll remember the threatened railroad strike? These train companies undermanning, understaffing these trains such that you have longer and longer trains. Look it up. You have more and more of these toxic chemicals being taken by longer and longer trains, and those trains are staffed by fewer and fewer people.
Google it.
And so you end up with these accidents, and as I say, communities that are in East Palestine, Ohio, they're not equipped to handle this kind of thing. So you're asking communities that are ill-equipped to handle it. No community is able to handle these bomb trains. They call them bomb trains for a reason. As the guy said, this is like nuking a town. And the last thing I'll say is that understaffing, that threatened rail strike, the length of these trains, all of the problems that are associated with this, they occur during a time that these railroad companies are making serious money. Their profits were way up. We talked about that on the show. So it's an ongoing concern that has to be addressed by shortening these trains, staffing these trains in a responsible way. And by the way, it's not just Palestine, Ohio, this, smaller community. Cincinnati today is looking at their water supply and the fact that it may be contaminated. It may be affected by the toxins that are leaching into soil and water in Palestine, Ohio. So you see the downstream effect is serious. Now, all of that is going on, and I think it's outrageous and shameful. And once again, we allow this to happen, and then we pick up the tab for it happening. Goose Mama says, kind of hard to blame anyone for a natural disaster is the defense. The derailment was caused by an earthquake. Also, trains take upwards of a mile to stop. All right, Goose, all I would say to you is this. It's how big the train is and how the train is managed by staff that I think becomes very relevant. The EPA was defunded and moved out of Washington to St. Louis to reduce the effectiveness by the previous administration. It's certainly true that the previous administration essentially has rendered the EPA, if not ineffective, so much less effective. And the Supreme Court is an ally in that fight. Goose, by the way, I have to check this. Maybe, Albert, you can check it. I mean, what the causes of the derailment. Anyway, the biggest problems, Goose says, is the use of toxic chemicals to begin with, of course, on some level. But I understand we have to coexist with these chemicals. I'm just suggesting that we have to try to handle them in a far more careful and responsible manner, right? What do you want to do here, Albert? I ask you.
Let's go to a quick break, and then we'll come back. We have a fun little lawn disorder story to end the show.
All right. Albert is the king.
I think 1 or 2 shout-outs for super stickers, and then we'll
I love it.
Monday, Mark. We did it, just the two of us. Maybe
I love it.
Kim will be happy that we didn't trash the house while she was away.
Okay. Smash the like button for Albert.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Yeah, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, all right. Well, I am... Then you want me to do what story here, Albert? You're the boss.
I have it here in the private in our chat.
Oh, in the private. Okay, there we go then. Okay, let me
Okay, while you were doing that, this live producing, I will hit the open.
Oh, thank you. All right,
we'll get
all
all
you
situated.
Then. All right, go for it.
In the criminal justice system, the people
pimps, turbo
thieves,
law
bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care
are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
When you end up disturbing a golf tournament, you get on the radar of Albert, everybody, because he's a big golfer. That's right, and that's where this story comes right into his wheelhouse. A man known as the Mullet Streaker was arrested at the Phoenix Open golf event. He jumped onto the course wearing only Speedos and shoes, then belly flopped into a pond. Well, it's a, yeah.
I did mute the video, but if you're the YouTube viewers, this is him on probably one of the more famous holes in golf because it's just the rowdiest crowd here. He is hyping up the crowd in his Speedo and mullet.
It is weird at a golf tournament because you kind of associate those golfing situations with all of you who are so well dressed, and so it's a higher end scene, you know, these golf tournaments. So when a mullet streaker shows up, it does sort of break the mood, I would think.
Sean, and here's the belly flop at the very end.
Oh, here he is. You got it?
We could probably rate the landing here.
Wow. I'm impressed. Yeah, I really am.
There's never been anything like this.
I think it really is impressive. Wow.
And then he had to awkwardly walk out of the pond to get handcuffed.
Yeah, that's
which we don't have the video of, but
that's the long walk. Sean Patrick McConnell, 27. It's the oddest title for a golf tournament, Albert. You know what it's called?
Yeah, it's the Phoenix Open, but it is also known as the Waste Management Open, right?
I mean, come on. I don't mean the Waste Management Open. Will you concede that that's a bit right?
Yeah, and this is obviously.
Yeah.
But this tournament is famous for this hole, the 16th hole, which is a par 3, and there's like thousands of people in the crowd. It's the rowdiest, it's the most non-golf hole in golf, and it's the only thing the PGA has to kind of get the casuals to watch. And this guy, in a sense, got more people talking about it, so I'm sure the PGA is happy.
Wow, very nice. The videos were taken by Tyler Drake. Very nice. Very cool. All right. Well, that's thank you, Albert. I think that is all I have for Law and Disorder today, don't I? I had a
yes.
Okay, I just told you.
That is it. That's all I had to offer right here.
Yeah, no,
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I would have added the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, is going to make something illegal, but it doesn't have to be done in Law and Disorder. He is banning girls from having the same name as his daughter.
What?
Yes, Kim Jong-un's daughter will be a one-off. North Korea is banning its people from using the same name as Kim's daughter. Anyone with the name Jue must change their birth certificate. The attention on Kim's daughter shows he wants her to be seen. He wants her to be part of his, quote, administration, said an expert on North Korea. Wow.
Within the same family, his father also known, very famous golfer apparently, because he shot a 38 on a par 69.
Oh yeah.
Who would forget? With including 11 holes in one, and he was 38 under.
Right, and who would ever question that score?
No, it was completely legit. It's like playing
completely legitimate.
It's like
Congratulations,
playing hockey against
sir.
Vladimir Putin. Vladimir
right.
is, he if he didn't have to run a country, he would be in the NHL right now.
He scored 5 goals, I remember, in that game. It was really the challenge in that game was making it look like you were playing defense when you weren't really playing defense against
the challenge was focusing
Vlad.
on the game when you're thinking about your family during the whole whole game.
Yeah. I'll give you one piece of news. Can I just mention a couple of things related to other news, Albert? Would you be okay with that, or are we have to wrap up? I haven't really followed the time. Okay.
More stories here.
The Georgia case against Donald Trump. That's where he said, I want you to find 11,000 votes. The Georgia judge who is presiding over that case is going to release parts of the report on the Trump election inquiry. So there are two things being suggested. They haven't brought this case yet. There's first this report on what happened during the election. So that's what this is pertaining to. So when I say this judge, I didn't mean to misspeak. It's not the judge presiding over the case. It's the judge presiding over the report. So they've released the introduction and conclusion of this special grand jury report, and it could shed light on the extent to which Trump and others might face legal jeopardy in the coming case. This just happened today. This Georgia judge saying that he will disclose parts of a grand jury report later this week that details an investigation into the election interference by former President Donald Trump and his allies. He'll keep the jury's specific recommendations secret for now. Robert C.I. McBurney of Fulton County Superior Court. This is the judge saying that a special grand jury raised concerns in its report that some witnesses may have lied under oath during their testimony. Still, the 8-page ruling includes a few other revelations about the report, the contents of which have been carefully guarded, with the only physical copy in the possession of the district attorney's office. So it does reflect, though, that the special grand jury that was impaneled for this, their findings are serious. So they say that in this report there is a list of people who should be indicted and people who should not. So this is going to be pretty big news later this week. They've been doing this criminal investigation for the last 2 years. I mean, everything has been going on very slowly, but that is big news, and it will break in a bigger way later this week. And the only other thing I will mention related to Donald Trump and his campaign, that was all part of the election, was that after the campaign, or during the campaign paid researchers to prove their fraud allegations. You remember that, remember the election was stolen thing? Yeah, probably rings a bell. The former president commissioned an outside research firm in a bid to prove electoral fraud claims, but never released the findings because the firm disputed many of his theories.
There's never been anything like this.
Could not offer any proof that he was the rightful winner of the election, according to 4 people who were familiar with this matter and knew about the investigation and the results. The campaign paid researchers from Berkeley Research Group to study the 2020 election results in 6 states, looking for fraud and irregularities to highlight in public and in the courts. They looked at voter machine malfunctions, instances of dead people voting, any evidence that could help Trump show that he won. None of the findings were presented to the public or in court, and it suggested they used statistics, they used different modeling to try to predict outcomes. The work was carried out in the final weeks of 2020, before the January 6th riot of Trump supporters at the U.S. Capitol. They looked at everything. This is a quote: change of addresses, illegal immigrants, ballot harvesting, people voting twice, machines being tampered with, ballots that were sent to vacant addresses that were then returned and voted. And
if you get it in order, you get extra points.
Yeah, they looked at everything, including illegal immigrants, change of addresses. Okay. And there was nothing that reflected the claims that they were contracted to find. In fact, the research shows that their results contradicted some of Trump's more conspiratorial theories, such as the voting machines being rigged and large numbers of dead people voting. So there it is. The results suppressed because it didn't back up what his general allegations
That's not
were.
fake. That's real.
Yeah, sadly, that is real. I wanted to do a quick, I know we normally end the show with
The Mark Thompson Show.
I normally end the show with something light. I just wanted to end the show with, or wrap up with the COVID numbers, just to let you know, because it is improving, the COVID situation. Cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are all down in recent weeks. Slight uptick in test positivity. And they think that because more people are testing positive, that overall the situation with COVID may not be that great. The South is emerging as something of a hotspot. Alabama and Louisiana have the country's highest per capita case rates, and reported cases have risen by more than 25% in both states, Alabama and Louisiana. That's just in the past 2 weeks. Deaths remain persistently high despite recent improvements. On average, more than 3,000 people are dying of COVID in the U.S. each week. I'll remind you, my dad got COVID. He's fully vaxxed, and that's what's nailed him and had sent him to the hospital. I mean, it's really, touch and go. So it's tricky. This COVID it ain't over. And it's serious. Grady's saying, I just got that, and I'm bouncing back after 3 days. Yeah. Cindy says tested positive this morning, then went to CVS for their 2-day results. Not happy. No. Cases don't matter, says Randy. It's hospitalizations and deaths. I don't think anybody knows what really matters, and I would respectfully point this out. You could be neither dead nor hospitalized and then be dealing with long COVID. Long COVID affects 30% of the people who get COVID, and it can be brutal. It can break you. It can ruin your life, force you to quit your job. You can end up with inflammatory illnesses of one sort or another and end up in a COVID haze that makes basic cognitive skills challenging. So I hate that take, which is watch the deaths and hospitalizations. Please don't misunderstand me. I understand those are important statistics. But what I'm suggesting is, just as we don't understand the far-reaching nature of COVID, I think we also don't really know what statistics to really be mindful of. You don't want COVID if you can avoid it. I think we can agree on that. So, and I think it's a reasonable point Chris is making here, and then we'll wrap up. The South has a diabetes epidemic, and that is a comorbidity in the sense that as you try to fight COVID, if you're extremely overweight or you're fighting other physical infirmities, certainly that does make it harder. So, all right, Albert, tell me what, I love it. How about a shout out?
Big shout out
to Joe Fong, $9.99 with a super sticker. Thank you. Look, we're crowd funded, and I appreciate you being part of the crowd and funding us.
Thank you so much.
It is how we stay on the air. Thank you, Joe. You're super cool for the super sticker. Thank you. Pamela Kirby, $19.99. Big shout out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Big shout out.
Love it. Pamela, that's very generous of you, and thank you for the super sticker for $19.99. Sadly, we need them. We need you. If you're watching on YouTube after the fact on delay, there's a little heart with a $sign. But I think the very best way to contribute to the show is through themarkthompsonshow.com. Go to our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. You got to put the in there, otherwise you end up at a ventriloquist site, which is a great place to end up, but not to support the show. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. Contribute either to Patreon or to PayPal. That way the lion's share of the money goes to us, and it helps keep us on the air. You can get merch, and the new Mark Thompson Show hoodie is made specifically for you. In other words, when you order the hoodie, you'll get the hoodie made specifically in your size. Beautiful embroidered hoodie. It is I'd say it's the high-end item, and yet it's not that expensive. There it is. Tastefully placed the Mark Thompson Show logo in the upper left
and that
breast
is a stitched
pocket
logo.
area.
That's not like some iron-on,
yes,
some printed, some subliminally printed logo. No, that is
exactly. Yes. It's beautifully executed.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, so very,
somewhere
very nice.
on the sweater is the thread count, but we won't disclose where that is. But the thread count is listed somewhere.
It is on that hoodie. Anyway, that's there. The Mark Thompson Show embroidered hoodie. Go to that's right, Albert. Thank you, Albert.
Thank you.
What is this called again, Albert? Is this a fanny pack cross body?
Sling cross body bag. So it is multi-purpose. You can wear it around your waist or around your chest, across your body, and it has the little Easter egg on the inside with the carry a little piece of Mark with you wherever you go.
Yes, I love that. So grab that, and behind that little picture of me is another secret pouch. So there's several different aspects to this. Knock around on the website, getmarkmerch.com is where and that money helps keep us on the air as well. And it's just a fun place to hang out and do get stuff. Albert, without any further delay, I just will mention that I'll mention that we We did a lot today. We didn't have Kim, So it was on Albert and myself to kind of just pick up the slack. And yet we did, I felt. It was a job well done, Albert. Yes. We talked about the Super
performance was way better than the experience we had watching the commercials yesterday.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
That's right. Is Nikki doing a show today? I don't know if she is or not. Usually she's in the chat and gives us something. Anyway, check her out at the Nikki Maduro show.
Something, and of course.
Oh, she did? Okay.
And my great producer. All right, I got it. I found it.
Here it is. So check it out. Super Sick Monday after the Super Bowl. A lot of people call in sick. Oh, that's it. She's always got a great show at the Nikki Maduro Show channel. Thank you for being here. And tomorrow...
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, a great show.
Bye-bye.
Tomorrow, we're without Kim too
On
much.
time. Bye-bye.
The great David K. Johnston tomorrow and more. Until then, bye-bye.